All right, here we go. It's going to be an interesting show here today on the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast on the Grid Network. I'm Mike Guido. That's Dalton Brown donning the Kansas City Royals hat today. We have plenty of stuff to go over, but last week we had an off week. Dalton, you had some things to deal with. I was caught in Pennsylvania. I was in Williamsport for the Little League World Series, and then all of a sudden a gigantic tropical storm just swamps the East Coast. And I get stuck in Pennsylvania for about 24 more hours than I thought I would. But otherwise, Dalton, how are you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling a lot better than I was last Monday. I know you're probably feeling a lot better than you were last Monday. I'm glad you made it home from the terrifying frontier that is Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I'm rocking the Royals hat because the Royals are making a move at that division today with what looks like it might end up being a doubleheader sweep of the Guardians. I haven't looked at the second game in a few innings, but the Royals have earned it, man. I mean, that team they're for real, and I just got to pay my respects. So I'm rocking the Royals hat today, but I got a lot to say about my Dodgers too. We're getting down to it. It's getting a lot of fun.
Yeah, it certainly is. I have plenty to say on the Yankees as well. And I will say most of it is not great. But plenty of stuff to go over today. Coming up a little bit later, obviously we have Dalton's Hot Corner at the end of the show today. Put some more money in your pocket. But a little bit later today, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge seems to they've almost seemed to separate themselves from the rest of the league. I mean, they are just lighting things on fire. Aaron Judge is on pace to break his own record. Shohei Ohtani is 40-40 this year. I mean, it's just remarkable what these guys are doing. Is it fair? Can we compare them potentially to McGwire, Sosa, steroid era, that kind of thing, building the excitement for the game itself? We'll touch on that a little bit later. The NL West, I named the episode Wild Wild West for a reason. That division is getting really, really good. The Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks, I think almost all of them are, or at least we can kind of make the assumption that they're, vying hard for playoff spots right now, but that division is up for grabs between those three teams. We'll touch on that a little bit. So we have plenty of stuff to go over today. But first, as we do every episode, we cater to our own fan bases. Sorry, not sorry. Dodgers, Yankees, here we go. Okay. By the way, I want to preface this by saying this. I am currently in the middle of a fantasy football draft as we are on the show. Okay. So if you hear a ping on my side of the audio, just know that means it's my pick and I may shut down for about 5 seconds. So I'm just letting the viewers know that is what is going to be occurring for probably the next 20 minutes or so. So here we go. But I am 9 picks away, so I have a little bit of time. So here we go. Here's the thing with the Yankees. It seems to be right now that things are pretty status quo as they were 2 weeks ago, right? Like I said before, they seem to be kind of out of the shit, but it still isn't phenomenal. Right? Like we're kind of like splitting series with teams that we really shouldn't be. I mean, like you lose 2 out of 3 to the Angels. You take 2 of 3 from the Rangers. You take 2 of 3 from the White Sox. You lose 2 of 3 to the Tigers. Like it's very like you take 2 of 3 from the Rockies. You're now in Washington. Like, I kind of expected this to be a run, and maybe I'm a little nitpicky, but I kind of expected this to be a run of like, okay, you're going to lose like 2 games out of like 5 series because of how bad this schedule is. And that's really not the case. I mean, you got blown out by Chicago 12-2 in Chicago against the White Sox. I mean, that just shouldn't happen on any sort of occasion. I don't know. I will say this. I think that the Yankees may need to start giving up on Will Warren. I think he just gets shelled every time he goes out, and that's a big problem. And some of these losses are because of that. I will lose my shit for about 2 seconds. Dalton Brown, Clay Holmes, is not a closer. He's not a closer. Okay? I will scream it to the high heavens. I will scream it from the top of the Empire State Building. I am at a point right now with Clay Holmes where, like, yeah, I can accept that you can see him as potentially a late inning star, as a late inning guy. I'm willing to accept any of those things, but he's not a closer. I'm sorry. If you are to a point where Clay Holmes, first of all, he doesn't strike anybody out. Okay. Everything he gets is on the ground. A lot of those balls see the outfield. And like, I'm just kind of getting to a point where, like, I am losing faith in him closing games. I mean, he's got 27 saves on the season. He's blown 10. Like, he leads the league in blown saves. Like, it's just not like, I want my closer to not have like a 35% blow rate. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that.
I love that you've introduced a new stat into the baseball world: blow rate.
Blow rate. But that's my problem, is that, like, I'm almost more confident that he's going to blow it than he's going to save it. And especially since the All-Star break, his ERA is like 4.5 since the All-Star break. So you go into the postseason where every team you play is the Guardians, the Twins, the Astros. Like, you get into those games, the Orioles, like, those are good teams. Are you really trusting this guy late in games? So that's okay. I'm done losing my mind. Aaron Judge and Juan Soto are obviously Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, but we do seriously have problems. And I think that we're seeing some organizational decisions that just don't make sense. They brought in a guy, I think his name is Duke Ellis, for outfield depth. Dude, just call up Jason Dominguez. Like, what are you doing? I don't understand. Like, Verdugo has been awful for 3 months. He's won for his last 3 months. And we're getting to it. Like, we're not calling up Dominguez. We have Grisham, who's hitting sub 200. Like, you got to find offense somewhere. So, look, I think there's definitely some problems. There's definitely some organizational issues that are, stymieing this franchise, I think, from going, above and beyond where they are now. They're obviously in first place. I can't be all that upset, but there's definitely some things that I'm scared of in the next month and heading into the postseason.
Yeah, I think the Clay Holmes thing is fascinating because, like, the idea that a pitcher can have a 2.77 ERA, and, like, by most measures, he's been pretty good overall. And he actually has an ERA under 3 in August. But when you blow 10 saves, it's impossible for people to feel good about what you've done. And I think you make a good point that if he's not striking people out, closer might not be the role for him, because you need to be a stopper. You need to be somebody who has swing and miss late in a game as a closer. So I think I think your point's well taken there. My question to you is, if it's not Clay Holmes, who is it at the back end of the Yankees bullpen for you?
Right now, I don't know. I mean, I think the guy who I think looks the best right now, who I think is most reliable at this very moment, is Tommy Kahnle. Now, I don't know that you can rely on Tommy Kahnle as a closer. I've never seen him as a closer. He's obviously at the later portion of his career, so I don't know how reliable that is. But it's also kind of this is something that should have been addressed earlier, because Ian Hamilton's been out for 2 months, right? Jonathan Loizaga has been out all season. I mean, those are 2 strong back end bullpen arms that you're missing. And now you're putting even more pressure on Clay Holmes, because not only is he I love that you feel confident in your closer and you're backing your guy, but now it kind of backs him into a corner of just like, all right, if he needs to bail out of that situation, you can't, because you don't have an option. So that would be my answer. I like Tommy Kahnle, but realistically, there are no options left.
Yeah, and my first thing when I hear Tommy Kahnle, I just think, like, the stuff is good, right? The results are usually good. But with his age, with his wear and tear, with his injury history, is he a guy who you can even give the ball to on back-to-back days? Right. And so it's a challenging situation in that way. But yeah, I mean, I think this is this is kind of the point in the season where over the next month, like, you have to figure out, okay, like, what are our roles, right? Like, you have a month to figure that out. You're going to be there. So it's not a matter of like, okay, what do we got to do to scratch and claw to be there? It's a matter of figuring out between now and then, like, okay, who are we going to be when we get there?
Yes.
And I think that, the Yankees are at a bit of a crossroads right now with the bullpen. Double-digit blown saves from anybody almost feels like something that just shouldn't be allowed to happen.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, because when I think about if I'm going to have somebody in the closer role all season, I think 5 blown saves is the most that I'm okay with. Like, I can live with that. Right. But once you start getting to 10, you're talking at least 20% of opportunities in most cases at that point. So your point's well taken on Clay Holmes. Switching gears over to my Dodgers. There's so many mixed emotions right now, but it's hard for me to not applaud them to a degree. Right. I mean, this is a team that has lost more games due to injury than anybody else in baseball, more like wins above replacement due to injury than anybody else in baseball, especially on the pitching side. It's just been ridiculous. Like, I don't think Tyler Glasnow is going to pitch again this year. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, I mean, we're going to get him back, but he's not going to be fully built up by October. Yeah. I mean, Kershaw looks okay. He looks better than I thought he did initially. But that's not like, I mean, he's not a guy you want to be relying on in a huge spot to start a game for you right now. He's got diminished stuff. He finds a way to compete, which I really admire, and it's not surprising just given the character of the dude. But, Clayton Kershaw is not really a guy you want starting a big game right now. Right. And so we're kind of back in a spot where Gavin Stone seems like number one at the moment. Jack Flaherty has been a godsend. Like, he's been at least very solid since he came over. But what really excites me with the Dodgers right now is that even with everything that's gone on, right? Like, for a while there, River Ryan was one of your most reliable guys. Now he's getting Tommy John, right? Tyler Glasnow was your most reliable guy. Now he's gone. They've just been winning games. Like, since the All-Star break, this has been a really damn good team. Yeah. And over the last 2 weeks, while Arizona and San Diego continue to just not lose, the Dodgers are actually like matching them step for step and holding on to this 3, 4, 5 game lead, depending on the day. And it's hard not to feel good about that when you look at what Arizona's done over the last 2 weeks, what San Diego's done what Arizona's done over the last 2 months. But what these teams have done over the last little while, to be able to hold on to that lead, you have to feel good about it. I think the biggest catalyst for why the Dodgers have sort of become the best team in baseball, both record-wise and when you watch them, is the fact that they literally got like 1/3 of a lineup back over the last week or so. Mookie came back and has been hitting the shit out of the ball. Max Muncy came back and has been hitting the shit out of the ball. And Tommy Edman came and is a heck of a lot better than some of the shit we were rolling out in the back end of the lineup. You add in the fact that Gavin Lux figured it out and turned into the prospect we always thought he was going to be at about the midseason mark this year. And all of a sudden, the lineup that was 3 or 4 deep is now legitimately 8 deep again. And that's even with Will Smith struggling and maybe seemingly coming out of it. So the offense I could not feel better about. It's balanced. It's deep. It's exactly what we thought it was going to be coming into the season. The pitching is very shaky. And how they manage that pitching is something I have no faith in. But this is a huge week ahead. Absolutely huge week ahead. Dodgers also have a great opportunity to help the Yankees. Dodgers hosting the Orioles the next 3 nights at Dodger Stadium, and then they go to Arizona for 4. So you got 2 of the best teams in baseball on deck. If you can go 4-3 over that stretch, that's probably good enough. I personally would love to see 5-2 given how we're playing. So really exciting time of the season in general. And I'm really excited to watch this week.
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of what I said 2 weeks ago, Dalton, where I was very, very bullish on the Dodgers if the Dodgers were able to get healthy. And obviously pitching has been a disaster from an injury standpoint. I mean, River Ryan looks like he's about to take over the world, and then boom, down he goes with Tommy John. You're right. The injury bug that they have caught is ridiculous. but getting Mookie Betts back, getting Max Muncy back, I mean, that lineup gets so deep. And this is, I'll pose this question to you. In a postseason scenario, right? Because I think heading into the playoffs, like I feel pretty confident that by the end of the season, we're going to be talking about the Dodgers as the favorite in the National League. Like that's how I love their roster, right? And I love what their lineup does when it's healthy. With their pitching injuries, does this become like, okay, Dave Roberts, like, are we going to see the absolute rock bottom of Dave Roberts due to this?
Probably. Like my look, I am brutally pessimistic as a Dodger fan, and I know to some it might sound whiny given the fact that this team has been so good for so long, right? Like, I'm not going to be the guy that sits here and is like, man, we have it worse than the Pirates. No, we don't. We have it really good, all things considered.
Yeah.
But, like, the October deja vu that we deal with every single fall, it's really difficult to feel as if anything else is coming, right? It's like, hey, we're having an awesome regular season. We can enjoy this, but when the calendar flips to October, like right now, I'm excited to watch the Dodgers every night, right? Like I go into each Dodger game and I'm like, our team's kicking ass right now. Like we're playing really good ball. We got a good ball club coming into town, but they're not playing as well as we are. I think we can beat up on Baltimore. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, come October 6th or 7th or whatever day the NLDS starts, I am going to have a pit in the bottom of my chest. It's not like there's no excitement at that point. There's just apprehension. And last year and the year before were both seasons where I looked at it and I'm like, the fact that those two teams can both lose in the NLDS to obviously inferior division opponents in ways that like are obviously mismanaged, and the guy keeps his job. I just don't know at this point what it would take for Dave Roberts to ever lose his job, and that's kind of a scary thought. I mean, like, and I don't want to sit on this for too long, but in that NLDS, he let Lance Lynn give up 4 consecutive home runs in an inning while you're facing elimination.
Yeah.
Like that just like there's no circumstance under which that's okay. Like, yeah. I mean, like you're facing elimination and you're letting your starter rot as if you need to save arms for tomorrow. I mean, it's just like it's a level of just whatever, like just total mismanagement at a level that is incomprehensible to me. And I can go year by year through it. I mean, you talk about bringing Ryan Madsen into a game against Boston back in 2018. I mean, I can just go on and on and on. It just doesn't stop. So I'm thrilled with the Dodgers right now. It's been an amazing time the last few weeks, and it's a competitive division race, which is driving us to play meaningful baseball into September, which a lot of people think is going to help us, and maybe it will, but I got to see it to believe it.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, one thing I will say, do not let Dalton Brown and Dave Roberts be in the same room. There might be explosives in the
the problem is that Dave Roberts, the human, like,
it's probably a wonderful guy.
By all accounts, like Dave Roberts is truly a very good person. Like there's a reason that the players love him. He's genuinely a wonderful human being. He's just not good at what he does.
Oh man, it doesn't get old. It really doesn't. I could hear you. I could listen to you crap on Dave Roberts all day.
Well, you better get
it. There we go. Okay. Before we get into the 1-2-3 inning, let's give you a score update here. Right now, by the way, interesting note today. Obviously, baseball history was made today, and Dalton knows exactly what I'm talking about. The Blue Jays won a continuation game against the Boston Red Sox today in Boston. And Danny Jansen the former catcher of the Blue Jays, current catcher of the Red Sox, became the first player in Major League history to play for both teams in one game. How incredible is that?
I mean, it's one of those things that, like, 15, 20 years from now, like, I mean, you know what I think of with it? I think of when we have kids and 25 years from now, they're going to like trivia in like at a college bar, right?
Yeah.
And they get asked the question, who's the only MLB player to ever bat for both teams in the same game? And they're texting their dad being like, Dad, you have any idea? And we're both going to be like, oh, yeah, I do. Danny Jansen, obviously.
Danny Jansen.
What do you mean do I know? Of course I know. So, yeah.
That was so funny. It was so, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was Danny Jansen's at bat that was occurring when the game got suspended. So it was possible. The broadcasters were saying, like, it's possible that Danny Jansen could catch his own strikeout. it's the craziest thing, but that's one of the things we got to love about baseball. So anyway, Blue Jays took the first game today against the Red Sox in a doubleheader in Boston. The Royals with a 4-3 win over the Guardians in Cleveland today as well. I mean, again, these AL Central division games are getting pretty damn important, Dalton Brown. I mean, we're looking at an AL Central right now where the Royals are just 2 games behind the Guardians. The Twins are 2.5 games behind the Guardians. I mean, that's a division where these series late in the year matter a whole lot. So, that's an interesting series this week.
The Royals beat the Guardians earlier, and they're up 9-4 on them right now. So it's about to be one game between those two, with the Twins right there as well.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So as we continue, the Astros and Phillies right now are tied in Philly 2-2 in the bottom of the 7th. Like Dalton said before, 9-4 right now. The Royals are beating up on the Guardians in Cleveland in the bottom of the 6th. The Yankees right now with a 4-0 lead over the Nationals in Washington in the bottom of the 6th. Gleyber Torres with a leadoff home run in this game. Gleyber Torres right now, I mean, I crap on Gleyber Torres more than anybody on earth, but he's hitting 300 ever since they moved him to the leadoff spot. Like, there's something to be said about that, man. Numbers don't lie. So there is something there, it seems like. Bottom of the 6th, the Cubs are beating up on the Pirates right now, 11-2 in Pittsburgh. Blue Jays, like I said, game 2 of that doubleheader in the bottom of the 5th. The Blue Jays are beating the Red Sox 5-1 in Boston. The Braves jumping out to a 9-1 lead into the bottom of the 2nd against the Minnesota Twins in Minnesota. I didn't even get a chance to see who started this game, but I mean,
yeah, it was a Bailey Ober blow up game for Minnesota. 9 runs in 2 innings, 7 hits, 2 walks, 2 homers.
Well, you get those, right? You get those from Bailey Ober from time to time.
It happened. Yeah.
So yeah, 9-1 heading into the bottom of the 2nd between the Braves and Twins. The Padres right now up on the Cardinals 2-1 in the top of the 3rd in St. Louis. The White Sox right now with a 1-0 lead over the Tigers in the heading into the bottom of the 2nd in Chicago. And then 2 games a little bit later today, a game that's about to get started in the next couple of minutes. The Miami Marlins and the Colorado Rockies in the Great Rocky Mountain State. Edward Cabrera, Ryan Feltner, a riveting matchup between 2 top-tier ball clubs right now. Marlins, Rockies at 8:40 Eastern time, and then the Rays and Mariners in Seattle. Ryan Pepiot and Bryce Miller on the bump for that one. That's actually a good pitching matchup between those 2 teams, the Rays and Mariners. The Mariners fighting and clawing to stay in the playoff picture. I just don't know that they're going to be able to hold on. We'll touch on that a little bit later as well. Okay, let's go into the first out here. So here's the thing. We look at the standings right now in Major League Baseball, and it's interesting because, we look at, let's start here with the National League, because I think it kind of ties into what we're going to be talking about here in the second out a little bit later. The Dodgers right now with a lead in the West, the Phillies and the Brewers leading their divisions. The Diamondbacks and Padres are in. The Braves are in on that last wild card spot in the National League. The Mets 2.5 games behind. And then there seems to be a little bit of a separation. The Giants are 5 back. The Cardinals are 5 back. It seems like the NL Central has kind of cooled off lately. The Reds and the Pirates have kind of fallen back. So we'll start right here in the National League, Dalton. The question is here. Are the National League, and we'll do the same thing in the American League, but are the National League playoff spots kind of set right now?
I think they are. And I'm going to say the same thing in both leagues, but we'll talk about the National League first. You have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams who all, according to Fangraphs, have an 80% chance or better of making the playoffs. And there's no other team in the NL with greater than a 19% chance of making the playoffs. I mean, that kind of tells the story, right? I mean, the Mets are sitting there at 19%, but after them, it's the Cardinals at 3.6%, the Giants at 3.1%. You look across the board otherwise, you got 99.3 on the Phillies, 100 on the Dodgers, 99 on the Brewers, 96 on the Diamondbacks, 95 on the Padres. And I think that's all pretty accurate. I mean, there really has been these teams really have pulled away from the rest as this has gone along. And, you know, I guess the Mets are the one question mark of like, can they maybe pass the Braves? I'm going to be honest, I just don't think the Mets are a good enough ball club. I think the Mets are a like roughly average 500-ish team this year that like has played a little bit better than that. I mean, they're 68 and 63, but you look at what the Mets have on deck, like they're going to Arizona. That's the hottest team in baseball, right?
Yeah.
Granted, they follow that with the White Sox, but I mean, the Mets could be out of it if Arizona sweeps the Mets, they're done. Like they're hanging by a string. So, I mean, I think it's pretty much you're going to see the Phillies, the Braves, the Brewers, the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, and the Padres in the playoffs. And that kind of just is what it is at this point. It's just a matter of where the teams land. Where it gets exciting is that, like, the NL West is still in the air.
Yeah.
Where the wild card teams ultimately land is still somewhat in the air. But I think we know who's going to be there.
Yeah. No, and to be honest, I think I agree with you in the sense that, like the Mets run that they had in the summer is over. Like that's done. And they're an interesting little ball club, but I don't think that I don't think they're better than the Braves. I think the Braves, despite their struggles, are still a team that you can rely on a little bit more than the Mets, especially with pitching. I don't know that a Mets pitching staff can really hold up in a playoff series. And truth be told, because I haven't looked at the standings in a while, I looked earlier today and saw that in the NL Central right now, the Milwaukee Brewers, they're sitting at 75 and 55. They're 20 games over 500. They have a 10-game lead over the Cardinals. Like, if you were to ask me, and we talked about it 2 or 3 weeks ago, where that division lead was like 6 games, right? And that was the largest one. And you and I kind of both anticipated that, like, that might not stay that way because we didn't really see the Brewers get better. We saw the Cardinals did, in fact, get better. And we're like, I just don't know that they can hold on to it. If you were to tell me 2 weeks ago that this division lead was going to be double digits by the time we talked about it again, I would have been like, no, I don't see that happening. Like, does that kind of surprise you where the Brewers are right now and how the rest of the NL Central has seemingly kind of fallen off? The Cardinals right now sitting at just 500. The Cubs are a game under. The Reds are, the Reds and the Pirates, I think we kind of both maybe expected to. Yeah, maybe less than the Pirates, but Paul Skeens has really struggled lately. But especially with St. Louis, you and I were both kind of like, they made some moves that we both really liked. Are you surprised by this?
I mean, I am because look, I thought that all these teams were going to kind of land around 500. Like, it's kind of what it felt like. And you got to credit the Brewers. Like 2 weeks ago, they were going into a week on their schedule where they had 4 with the Dodgers and 3 with the Guardians. And they went 5-2 that week. They split their 4 with the Dodgers 2-2, and they swept the Cleveland Guardians at home.
Wow.
you got to give them credit. You know what I mean? And then they went out and last week they lost the 2 out of 3 in St. Louis, but then they went and handled business in Oakland. And, that 2-week stretch combined with the Cardinals kind of falling off a cliff a bit, and it's over. I mean, as quickly as that division could have got close the other way, it slipped. And I mean, now you're talking 10 games out on August 26th, August 27th, that it's over. Like,
yeah, no, I think it's done. I think that division's done.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears here. Let's switch to the American League now, because, this is a conversation that I think, honestly, we could have even expected this to be a little bit tighter. I mean, we've been saying it all summer that this American League wildcard race is going to be pretty tight. There's tons of teams in it. Right now, you got a 5-game separation between the Twins and the Red Sox for that last spot. The Twins being in, right? The Yankees and the Yankees, Guardians, and Astros right now have the divisions. The Orioles are 3 games up on the Royals, who have the next spot, and then it's Royals, Twins. Red Sox are 5 games back. Mariners are 6.5 games back. Rays are 7.5 for the Tigers. And I think mostly we were thinking that the Red Sox and the Mariners were the teams that could sneak in and maybe steal one of those spots. Do we still feel that way, Dalton Brown?
No, I mean, I think I think for Boston, it's over. I think especially when you counter in the fact that they're most likely getting swept in a doubleheader today at home by the Blue Jays. The Reds, I mean, they're down 5-1 in the 6th right now in game 2. If they don't come back and win that game, they're 67-64. The Red Sox entered today 67-62 with a 23.5% chance of making the playoffs. Stack 2 losses on that number is going to cut in half. I mean, that's where we're at in the season, right? Yeah. And, I talked about the playoff odds from Fangraphs in the NL because it was stark that every team is either 19% or lower or 80% or higher. It's the same way in the American League. The Red Sox are going to be under 20% after the way today's gone. And the rest of these teams are all 84% or higher. Royals 84, Astros 90, Twins 89, Guardians 95, Orioles 98, Yankees 100. That's chances of making the playoffs. I mean, it's the same story in both leagues where at this point on August 26th, we know who the teams are going to be.
Right.
It's just a matter of what order they fall in. I will say the American League, I think, has the more intriguing races overall. And the NL West can be fun, and we'll talk about how dominant that division has been. But in terms of competitive divisions, Yankees O's 1.5 separates them. That is well up in the air, right? Guardians, Twins, Royals 2.5 separates those 3 teams. That's totally up in the air. Mariners only 4.5 back of the Astros. That's in theory still up in the air, although I don't buy the Mariners' ability to come back in that division at all. But in theory, all 3 of those divisions are still in play. Those wild cards could still shuffle a bit. So I think the American League pennant race is a little bit more intriguing overall right now. But across baseball, 12 teams are going to make the playoffs, and we know who they are already.
Yeah, I don't know that I disagree. I mean, I think – and I wouldn't have been surprised if this was going to be the final tally here, because the Red Sox, obviously they've been, I think, a surprise for most of Major League Baseball, where you looked at this roster top to bottom at the beginning of the season, you were just like this is a last place team. You know what I mean? They've got some young guys, but they're pretty underdeveloped. Nobody's going crazy over the Red Sox roster. And the Mariners, I think a lot of people expected the Mariners to do it because of their pitching staff, but I don't think anybody anticipated their offense being this bad. I mean, Julio Rodriguez has been, I think, one of the bigger disappointments in baseball this entire season. Jorge Polanco hitting just over 200 now. You're looking at a roster that's just you're questioning how they can stay competitive, at least based on how poor they are offensively. I mean, as far as batting average is concerned, they're 15 points into last place in the league. They're hitting 210 as a team. That is unbelievably low. So I do think that there is something there. If you and I were to start the year by saying, I just want to see this, because I want to see if if either one of us had this, because I still have them here. Nope. And no. If you were to ask us at the beginning of the year that the American League Central was going to put 3 teams into the playoffs, like, nobody would have believed us. Nobody would have said that. You and I both had the Twins in the playoffs, and that was it. There was nobody else that was making it. You're looking at a scenario now where the Guardians, the Royals, and the Twins are all pretty much locked in.
Yeah.
Like, that is sick to me.
It's incredible. And I mean, like, if you want to talk about it from a beginning of the season perspective, like, the World Series champion Rangers are 11 games under 500 with a 0.1% chance of making the playoffs. The Astros are going to make the playoffs with what might be the worst record of any of the playoff teams in the AL.
Yeah.
It's just been a weird year. I mean, I think Yankees and Orioles at the top of the AL East is not shocking to anyone. I think, I kind of thought the Blue Jays would be there too, but, the AL East is not shocking. The Astros leading the AL West is not shocking, but the Twins and Royals and Guardians all being this competitive, it's a lot of fun. That division hasn't had a whole lot of intrigue for a number of years. I mean, I even got to hand it to the Tigers, man. Like, 65 and 66 for the Tigers is absolutely topping expectation.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe part of it is that these teams are getting to play the White Sox so much, but the rest of this division is all exceeding expectations, and they deserve credit for it.
Yeah. By the way, the White Sox right now are 31 and 100. That is remarkable. How can you be that bad? Like, that is so crazy. This past Friday night, I went to the Yankees-Rockies game. 3-0 Yankee win. Woohoo. I was there with my uncle. It was his birthday. My uncle, his wife, my dad was there as well. And we were looking at the Rockies lineup, and it was like, okay, you have, and the top of the Rockies lineup, like, there are recognizable names, right? Ezekiel Tovar, I think you know by now. Ryan McMahon, Brendan Rodgers, like those are decent players, right? Yeah. But like at the bottom of the lineup, you're looking at like Michael Toglia. You're looking at guys that have 12 major league at bats, like just absolute nobody's in the league as of right now. And my uncle was just like, how crazy is this? That this Rockies team is like 15 games better than the White Sox.
Like, now. Yeah.
Isn't that remarkable? Like, you look at the Rockies roster and they give up more runs than anybody in baseball. They have the worst pitching staff than anybody in baseball. You look at their lineup and it is beyond unimpressive. And they are 17 games better than the Chicago White Sox.
I mean, Mike, preseason, I said the Rockies, I gave a bet out Rockies to have the worst record in baseball at about 3-1 because they play in an awesome division and they're really bad. If you take the White Sox out of it, the Rockies would have the worst record in baseball by about 8 games. Like, they're 8 games worse than the A's. The Rockies are. Yeah. They're about, actually, no, they're right
better than the Marlins.
They're right there with the Marlins too. But the Rockies and Marlins are both 16, 17 games up on the White Sox. It's completely absurd.
Historically bad. They are historically bad. Okay. Speaking of that NL West that we are raving so much about, marveling, as you would put it. Right now, you look at that division, right? As we move into our second out. You look at that division. The Dodgers right now, 78 and 53. They have the best record in baseball. They are 3 games ahead of the Diamondbacks and 4.5 games ahead of the San Diego Padres. Diamondbacks 75 and 56. The Padres 74 and 58. They're both all 3 are going to make the playoffs. I said a while ago that I believed in the Diamondbacks. I thought that roster would eventually start clicking. And with the playoff experience that they got last year, I thought it would kind of click at some point this year. It certainly seems to look that way. San Diego is a legitimately good ball club, as you've been trying to convince me of virtually all season. I came around a while ago, and I believe you 100% now. And then obviously, I think the Dodgers are the Dodgers. I think given health, they could very easily be the best team in the National League. So what do you make of this division? I mean, the Dodgers and Diamondbacks, obviously they have a 4-game series coming up this week. What do you make of what's going on in the NL West? I named the episode Wild Wild West. I think that's appropriate for what's going on over there. We predicted early on in the season that this division was going to be an absolute, like blow up. What do you make of this?
Yeah, it's really as a Dodger fan, like it's frustrating because you're looking at this division and you're like, man, we're playing really good ball since the All-Star break, and we're just not gaining any ground. Like I'm looking at San Diego Padres since July 6th, 25-15. Good, not unheard of. Diamondbacks since July 6th, 32-11.
Wow.
It's absurd. Dodgers 24-18 over that span. And you've gone 24-18 over that span, and you've lost like 5 games worth of lead in the division. You look since the All-Star break, they've all been awesome, right? Dodgers 22-13, Diamondbacks I think are about 20 games over. So it's and the thing that's been scary with Arizona is they're doing it against like good teams. Like they're beating up on everybody. Good teams, just okay teams, everybody, they're beating up on them. So, it's funny. I told you a couple weeks ago, I thought the Padres were going to overtake the Dodgers for the division. I mean, it might be Arizona with how their healthy pitching looks now. Eugenio Suarez all of a sudden turning into like 2019 Reds Eugenio Suarez. They're just pressing all the right buttons. And so, like, I feel a little bit more confident now than I did 2 weeks ago about the Dodgers winning the division because things have kind of like settled. We've got a healthy lineup now. We got through a tough part of our schedule the last couple weeks, like with really good results. But this week is another absolutely huge test. And if you go into Arizona and you get swept in 4 games, you legitimately 1 week from today may not have a lead in this division.
Yeah.
So,
what I find interesting about this series, and I want to get your opinion on this too, and this is just kind of like, ground and pound baseball here, where like the Diamondbacks, obviously we talked about the Dodgers before. They're going to be coming off a series with the Orioles that starts tomorrow. It ends on Thursday. Same thing with the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks are going to be playing at home against the Mets. That series ends on Thursday. Neither one of these teams gets a day off before this series starts. So, I mean, you're going to be, I would imagine that you're going to be getting into that series with with 2 bullpens that are going to be absolutely fucking gassed. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be an absolute, like, dumpster fire of a series. And I probably don't mean it in that literal sense, but like, it's going to be one kind of a shit show for pitching in that series as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a war. And the way the ball flies at that ballpark in Arizona, like, I've said for years, like, playing in Colorado is a unique thing, but playing in Arizona is no fun either. The ball flies out of there, and like the pitching situation can get real wonky. What I am really excited for this weekend is to see like Chase Field when the Diamondbacks are good is it reminds you a little bit of Petco Park when the Dodgers go down there, where you get a really charged environment because you have so many fans of both teams.
Yeah.
Like, when the Padres are no good, it's Dodger Stadium South, right? When the Diamondbacks are no good, it's Dodger Stadium East. Like, and that's the same. I mean, like Denver right now, when the Dodgers play there, it's a Dodger home game in Denver. But when the Diamondbacks are actually competitive, it's like 50-50 in that ballpark, it's a crazy environment. It makes for really fun, like playoff feeling baseball. And I like that the Dodgers have to view it that way this year.
Yeah.
Like the last couple of years, it's been like, well, this is a huge series for them, but we got this. I mean, I look at this date last year, the Dodgers are 12 games up. Like Arizona was having a great year, and the Dodgers are 12 games up. It was like, all right, well, whatever, right? But parity across baseball. Last year on July 26th, we had 5 teams with 80 or more wins. Today we have none.
Yeah, isn't that sick? That is so sick. Well, I mean, we talked about that 2 weeks ago. We're just like nobody. It's, and I'm going to say this is in kind of like an sort of a hyperbolic way. nobody in baseball's good. Like they're all kind of like they're all okay. They're all decent. You know, like the Yankees are pretty good. The Orioles are pretty good. The Dodgers are pretty good, but nobody's like fucking great. Like nobody in like, and like, that's why. And it, like, as we kind of get closer and closer to the postseason, it's becoming more and more unlikely that I think that it happens, just because I don't think they can get healthy in time. Obviously, it's what you kind of described before, but that's why I said a couple of weeks ago that I think like the team that has the best chance of being great is the Dodgers, if the Dodgers can get healthy. But if the Dodgers can't get healthy, then they're just kind of in the pool of the Diamondbacks and the Padres and the Brewers and the Phillies and whoever else in that National League.
Yeah, I mean, I want to present to you my scenario for, like, if the like this is how the Dodgers can fulfill that prophecy, right?
Yeah.
If Yoshinobu Yamamoto can give you 4 or 5 innings in the postseason, if Bobby Miller can command his pitches, and Jack Flaherty continues doing what he's doing now, and Tyler Glasnow is back in any capacity, like, I think the Dodgers are going to be very flexible with their pitching, is what I'm getting at. I think Flaherty is going to be a traditional starter. I think Gavin Stone is going to be a traditional starter. But everybody's going to have a tight leash, and I think you're going to see a lot of, like, Bobby Miller throwing 3 innings out of the bullpen. Walker Buehler coming in and throwing an inning or 2 with better velocity because he's pitching out of the bullpen. I think you're probably going to see Tony Gonsolin, who is throwing, like, finally pitching off a mound now as he comes back from his injury. You're probably going to see him in the bullpen. One thing that I feel recklessly certain of, that everybody is in total denial of. Shohei Ohtani has begun pitching off a mound.
Oh, no.
And the Dodgers and Shohei are completely, no questions asked. He is not pitching this year, period. That's the word on the street from the Dodgers and from Shohei. But you're telling me that 2 months from now, he's pitching off a mound now. You're telling me 2 months from now, if you're in the NLCS, he can't come in and give you an inning to close out a game here and there?
I mean, that sounds reasonable. Honest to God.
Yeah.
It sounds reasonable.
Because you think about if he's just starting to pitch off a mound now, his progression, if he were getting built up to get into game action, would be that he'd probably be pitching 3-inning sim games, like maybe a minor league rehab assignment where he's throwing 3 or 4 innings. I mean, picture this, right? It's Dodgers, Phillies in the NLCS, and you're in a game 7. Your pitching's gassed, and you got to get Trey Turner and Nick Castellanos out at the end of a ball game. And Shohei Ohtani's arm feels good enough. How do you resist that temptation? How does Shohei resist that temptation? How does Roberts resist that temptation? And what do you stand to actually gain by resisting that temptation?
Well, it kind of depends, right? I mean, if that would be his first outing of the year, like, I don't know that anybody would bite. Like, I don't know that Dave Roberts or anybody in there would be like, okay, let's pull the trigger. You know, you want to talk about like bringing in Ryan Madsen or letting Lance Lynn give up 4 bombs before you yank him facing elimination. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Dodger fans would go ballistic if Ohtani's first outing of the year was in a situation where it could cost them their season.
But here's the thing, right? I watched Joe Kelly enter the game yesterday against the Rays in a 3-3 tie in the 10th. Like, you're telling me you're telling me that you have the choice in that spot of Joe Kelly or Shohei Ohtani? I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that when the Dodgers are super like, it's not happening no matter what, I'm like, you know what? I'll believe it when I see it. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know. Look, the reality with the Dodgers, and I know this has been a little bit of a Dodgers circle jerk for a minute here, but the reality with that lineup right now, when it's Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Teoscar being one of the best hitters in baseball this year, Will Smith, if you can get anything productive out of him, but then it's Muncy and Lux, like it's just really deep and really scary. And if we can manage our pitching effectively and like get 3-4 innings out of guys and piece games together, the pieces are there.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, no, it'll certainly be interesting. I would be. How electric would that be? And honestly, how about that? Picture this too: the entire Dodger organization just keeps it a secret, right? Shohei Ohtani, he's not pitching.
But that's how I think it needs to happen. Is they got to hold this line of he's not pitching no matter what, and then all of a sudden, like
the lights in Dodger Stadium go out.
Like all of a sudden, it's game 5 of a 2-2 series, and we are running out of arms in the 8th inning against the Phillies, and all of a sudden you see Shohei with a jacket in his hand jogging out to the bullpen. and I can picture it. It's giving me goosebumps picturing it.
It'll be. Listen, it would be electric. It would be electric, no doubt about it. Speaking of Ohtani, as we move into our third out of the evening, right now Shohei Ohtani, he's at 40-40. He had a walk-off grand slam the other night. Like the guy is just a god. Like I don't know how else to say it. He's just I don't know. He's the mecca of baseball, really. Judge is at 50 homers. It's not even September. He's on pace to break his own record in the American League. So, I think you and I can, can we come to a conclusion today, right now, that, and maybe I'm doing this for my own ego, really. Are those the two best players in baseball right now, Ohtani and Judge?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would pretty much automatically conclude that, right?
No, I don't think that's like a hot take at all either. I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Very obviously at this point. I mean, and they're both doing things that, and this was kind of what made me think it would be a fun topic for this week is like, I think this is such an opportunity for Major League Baseball to go like full McGwire Sosa marketing level with these two.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like you've got Aaron Judge at 50 home runs on August 25th. Like that's nuts, man. Like that's like you're telling me he can't break his 62 from 2022? Sure he can. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's totally possible that that's So you got one guy who's got a shot at 60 home runs, and you have another guy who has a shot at a 50-50 season. A 45-45 season has never been done. I think he'll get there. And a 50-50 season is not out of the question. Because, by the way, Shohei hit his 41st home run over the weekend as well. I mean, what these two guys are doing, they're both having, once in a decade seasons as far as what you see in baseball, right? It's nuts.
It's beyond. It's beyond.
It's the kind of thing that should have the game on fire in terms of popularity. And I think that there's a lot more that could be done to make that happen.
Yeah, I agree. And this is, by the way, accounting for, and I can only, I don't watch Shohei Ohtani every day, but I do watch Aaron Judge every day. Aaron Judge, through March and April, was pretty bad. Like, I remember you and I talking about that, and, I was even coming on this show, and I should probably just eat shit on this, but, I was coming on this show early on in the year, and I was like, Dalton, I'm worried about Aaron Judge. I'm really worried that, this is just who we're going to get this year. And he was striking out at a high rate. He didn't look all that healthy. He was hitting around 200. He was just not looking right. And since then, this is why I say, the people that think that Bobby Witt Jr. is the MVP in the American League, I want to strangle them because I just know that you're not paying attention. I know it. And Bobby Witt Jr. is phenomenal. And I will go on a rant by saying that. But like Aaron Judge in the month of August is hitting 425. His OPS is over 1,500. Like, there was a stat the other day that said that Aaron Judge's slugging percentage right now is higher than the league average OPS. Like, it's his slugging. He is slugging at a higher rate than the league is getting on base and slugging.
Yeah.
Like, that's gross. That's gross.
Yeah, he's slugging 735. That's fucking crazy.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, you look at his 62 home run campaign where he hit 311 in 2022. He slugged 686, and he's slugging 735 right now.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Is like you can make the argument that he's better this year than he was that year.
For sure.
He's better this year. I mean, look, and I agree with you to the point where like even if these years aren't happening, like let's say Aaron Judge is having a good year, an MVP type year, but not even to this caliber, right? Let's even dock Shohei Ohtani a little bit and say, all right, like the injury did kind of hit him a little bit. He's still having a really good year, but he's not doing this. Like, you have two guys that you and I can both agree just look different from everybody else, right? Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani walk on a baseball field, and they don't look like they belong there. They look like they should be playing on, like, they look like they should be playing in the Coliseum in Rome. Like, that's what they look like otherworldly beings that don't belong on a baseball field. Why is Major League Baseball not plastering them everywhere? Like, we talk about, like, we need the best athletes, and this is just general baseball, right? We talk about how we need the best athletes in the world to start playing baseball. These 6'8", jacked out of their mind, fast as hell kind of guys that they need to be playing baseball. Well, you have two of them right now. Like, just blow their shit up like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I mean, and I think baseball is trying in its way. Like, I think, baseball's trying to do that. I just don't think baseball is as good at that as they once were. Part of it is that, like, as the way sports are, like, enjoyed changes, baseball has become a fossil. Like, the TV blackouts and all these regional rights, like, they've just bungled it to the point that, like, they're just like it's really hurt the game and really hurt how much the game is watched. So I think that
may have irreparably hurt the game too. Like, that might be something you can't fix.
Yeah. I mean, I think baseball. Look, I you've heard me say this before. I think baseball's demise is generally greatly over exaggerated.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I feel strongly about that. But, like, you and I were little kids, but we were alive in the 90s. At least I was. I don't know. You're a little bit younger than me, but, like,
I was born in 96. I was barely alive in the 90s.
Okay. I was born in 92. So, like, I remember 98 with McGwire and Sosa. Like, that was the baseball world that I was first introduced to. And back then it was there was Michael Jordan, there was Tiger Woods, and there was Mark McGwire, and there was Sammy Sosa, and there was Ken Griffey Jr. And like if you were to ask a 6-year-old then, like, what athlete do you most look up to? You're going to have as many Mark McGwires and Sammy Sosas as you're going to have Michael Jordans and Tiger Woodses.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you're not going to have nearly as many Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtanis as you're going to have LeBron Jameses and Steph Currys and Patrick Mahomeses. And, like, to some extent, okay, like, the gap is not maybe as wide as we think. But, like, Aaron Judge, in what we assume is being done, like, off of roids, right? Same thing with Ohtani. Like, what these guys are doing clean is like nothing else we've ever seen somebody do clean. Like, realistically, it's like nothing else we've seen guys do clean ever.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. I mean, the only, like, Bonds is the only other one, right? Where, like, Bonds was, like, otherworldly, but, and I think Bonds, even if Bonds was clean, I think he's still the best hitter of all time. But what these guys are doing right now is crazy. Like Aaron Judge we're probably looking at another 60 home run season here for him. Like he needs 9 more in another 5 weeks. He can totally do that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And he's batting 333 while doing it, while OPSing like 1,200. I mean, that's what, like, this is one of the best hitting seasons we have ever seen in the history of the game, legitimately. Yep. And look, I mean, Ohtani, the numbers are a little bit different in how they're set up. 292, 41 homers. You know, I mean, it don't get me wrong, it's absurd in its own right. Of course, with Ohtani, you have the added value of 40 stolen bases.
Right.
You know, you're adding in the second most stolen bases in the league behind Elly De La Cruz. That's nuts. You know, but with Ohtani, you're looking at an OPS of 993, right? So it's not quite as crazy from a hitting perspective. But both of these guys, I mean, like Ohtani right now is prime Griffey. Like, prime Griffey. And then, right? Like, Judge right now is like prime Bonds. Now, I mean,
and it's interesting that you say that because like people might like jump to that and be like, oh, wait, whoa. Because I think people get defensive of Griffey, similar to how they get defensive of Jordan, right? But Griffey, like the thing that Griffey has on Ohtani is that Griffey was a sensational center fielder. But Ohtani also pitches. So like I think that kind of evens out. Maybe I think Ohtani gets an edge there. So, you know, anyway, continue. My bad.
No, I mean, but I mean, you look at Griffey's prime, right? Like OPS 1025, 1076, 860, 1020, 976, right? Like Ohtani's 993 this year. That's just about there. But Griffey also never stole more than 24 bases in a season.
Yeah.
Griffey also never pitched, right? Like, it's not a perfect comparison. There is no perfect comparison for Ohtani. But when I think of this type of power and speed combination, there just aren't very many guys that you can even discuss in that realm, right? Like 2023 Acuna is kind of there too. But, I mean, Shohei's the first guy to ever hit 40-40 before September 1st. And he did it a full week before September 1st.
Yeah.
Nobody's – and like the fact that 40-40, only 6 people have done it and nobody's ever done 45-45 – tells you that 40-40, you're pushing the limits of what should be possible. He's going to blow it out of the water this year. So, yeah.
He might do 50-50. I mean, like, that's not out of the realm of possibility. Like, Ohtani is that gifted. And, like, because we look at, you know, guys in the league that have tons of tools, right? Like Elly De La Cruz is one of those guys where, like, if everything sort of pans out, I mean, that could be somebody that steals 100 bases in a season, right? But, I mean, Ohtani is a guy that is putting all of these tools legitimately together, and this is the result you get of guys that are this fast, this strong, that, like, they're pure hitting ability is this good, you know, like this is the culmination of that. And while Judge doesn't have like Judge is not slow by any stretch of the imagination, he doesn't steal bases or anything, but like the guy is just seemingly so far ahead of the rest of the league as an offensive player. I mean, we've kind of gotten to a point where like the comparisons to Bonds are like, it's not even just it's not just boiled down to numbers either. The way that he gets treated in a game is similar to how Bonds was treated. They are refusing to pitch to him. Refusing to. They will walk him to load the bases with nobody out. Like,
right. And I want to be clear on one thing with that comparison too, right? Like, raw numbers wise, like, Bonds is untouchable.
I mean, like, Bonds has done things that
I want to make that clear, right? But Bonds was also like caught juicing, right? Like, Now, you know, who knows how much that, you know, created the monster that he was at various times. Like, there's no way to quantify that, and there's no point in trying to. But I do think it's worth noting that, like, Judge is doing this clean, at least as far as we know, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, you look at Bonds 2001 through 2004. I mean, we're talking OPSs between 1,300 and almost 1,430. I mean,
Yeah, I
just
mean Bonds. Yeah, what Bonds did in 2001 is a joke. Like it's not real. 73 homers. He was walked 177 times, which is it's fascinating to me because, like, again, I saw this pop up before earlier in the week where, like, the two leaders in the American League right now in walks are Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. They both have over 100. The next guy is Gunnar Henderson, and he has like 65. Like, those guys, they're just not pitching to them.
yeah,
They can't.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it's funny too because you mentioned the 177 for Bonds in 01. How about 232 in 04?
I know, it's sick.
I mean, that's that you're getting walked 1.5 times every single game. So you're literally having an at bat and a half taken away from you every single game, and he still put up 45 homers and 101 RBIs.
Yeah, isn't that something? He had 617 plate appearances and 373 at bats.
Yeah,
that is so unbelievable.
I mean, and you think about, like, let's think about how many at bats you see out of a big leaguer in a normal season, right? The benchmark number I always hear is like 600 is considered a full season, roughly.
Yeah.
So we're talking like, what's that? 60% of a full season, and he hits 45 homers. Like he was on, like, that season he might have hit 80 if they pitched to him all year.
Oh, I bet that. Oh yeah. I would bet that he would have. But all right, this is fun. But this is fun. But we got to move on. I can gloss over Aaron Judge all day. I can. I came within, like, by the way, while I was in Williamsport while the Little League game was happening, and I'll send you pictures after the show. Maybe I'll even post them. But, like, as far as I am to the door that is next to my studio, and like, it's, I don't know, it's maybe not even 10 feet. Like, Aaron Judge is standing right there. First of all, if you've never seen Aaron Judge in person, Aaron Judge is a massive human being.
Yeah.
Like, if you think that you know how big these dudes are, you don't. You just don't. Okay. The same can be said about Giancarlo Stanton too, because that dude is literally, like, his arms are like tree trunks, like legitimate tree trunks. It's remarkable how, like, like, physically superior they are to normal people. Like, it really blows my mind.
You know what it is, Mike? And the Little League reference, I think, really hits home for me. And it's kind of where I get this Sosa McGwire feeling with it. I remember back in, like, 1998, 1999, like, you know, our Little League would always have Little League night at the ballpark, right? Where the whole Little League would get tickets up at the top deck at Dodger Stadium it was always like a random afternoon game, right? And I remember so vividly that one year it was the Cardinals. And it, like, that, like, every other year you'd have, like, maybe half the league would make it to it. And that one year, it was either 98 or 99. It was Dodgers Cardinals that they got that the Little League got tickets for. And I don't think anybody missed it. Like, every single player in the Little League was like, no, Mom and Dad, I want to go watch Mark McGwire. Like, it was, I mean, because the Dodgers were whatever back then, right? I mean, they were just okay. And it was like, no, we want to go watch Mark McGwire. I want to go watch Sammy Sosa. And it was a big deal when you got to go to the ballpark and you knew that Mark McGwire or Sammy Sosa was going to hit. Like, you're not going to the bathroom or you're not going to get a Dodger dog if you know that they're coming up that inning, because you don't want to miss it. And that, to me, like, because I went to 2 Dodger games when I was out in LA. I saw him play earlier this year at Wrigley. You know, I've seen him play a couple times this year, and that's how it is this year, right? Like, when I was in Cincinnati, I was like, hey, I refuse to go buy a beer this inning because Shohei Ohtani's coming up to bat, right? Like, that's how I'm going to be this weekend. Like, when I go to that Yankees-Cardinals game in New York on Saturday, you think I'm getting up to get a hot dog if Aaron Judge and Juan Soto are due up? Hell no. Like, but to me, that's the essence of what makes these players special, because there are a lot of good players in the league that are not that way, right? Like, Gunnar Henderson is a hell of a player, but I'm not, like, Like, I'm not thinking,
You're not stopping everything you're doing to watch him hit.
yeah, like I have to get to the ballpark to watch Gunnar Henderson play, right? Like Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge have that effect. And what's really exciting about baseball right now that I don't think they're capitalizing on enough is like there are other young players that are heading that way. Like what Bobby Witt is this year, he's not the AL MVP, but he's OPSing over 1,000 with 27 homers and 37 stolen bases. Like he's becoming must-watch TV in the same way that Ohtani and Judge are to a degree.
Yeah.
You look at some of these younger guys, Ellie De La Cruz, O'Neal Cruz, James Wood. Like these are guys who physically fall into that category where you're like, whoa, that's different.
Yeah.
And I think the game needs that. They need to embrace that. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, and look, maybe it's just because we're older now, right? But I remember the world when I was 6 years old and baseball was everything, and McGwire and Sosa, and it was everything. I think it's there. We just have to capture it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And no, I don't think it's just because we're older. I think that that's really how it was. I think the culture around baseball was different. It seemed to be more captivating than it is now. And honestly, I think there's a lot of exterior things that have nothing to do with baseball that have something to do with that. It's probably a lot of it's social media. It's all of these other things. It's shortening attention spans of children and all of that stuff. Like all of that has something to do with it.
Totally.
But like when we didn't have an iPhone in 2006, then like I sat in my living room as a 10-year-old and watched a 4-hour Yankee game where they lost 5-1. Like, on a Wednesday. Like that was just it. That's what I did. And I would do that instead of doing my homework. Like that was what I did. So
it was every day. I'd come home from like middle school, and I remember like school would get off at 3. I would jump in the pool. I'd have my dinner, and my whole goal was like I got to get my homework done by 7:10 because that's when the Dodger game starts, right? Yeah. Or if the Dodgers are on the East Coast, it's bargaining of like, hey, I'm going to come home. I'm going to jump in the pool for 20 minutes. And I remember like we would blast the TV coming out of my living room. So when I was in the living room, when I was in the pool, I would turn the TV up as loud as possible. And once I heard Vin Scully's voice, I'd jump out of the pool, dry myself off, and go get on the couch. And I'd sit there for 3 hours. No technology. It was just like, I'm just taking in a ball game. And like, look, you can't, like, once the cat's out of the bag, the cat's out of the bag. We have to find a way to make the game mean what it meant in a new way. And I think that's okay. But like, part of what excites me about Ohtani and Judge is they're bringing back a little bit of that for me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And isn't it fun that on this show we have a Dodger fan and a Yankee fan, and we can both speak to that kind of individually? I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So okay, that wraps up the 1, 2, 3 inning. Really great stuff. Really, really great stuff. Let's give you a score update before we head into the hot corner. Like we said before, Blue Jays and Red Sox. They had a game earlier today. 4-1 was the final in that one. Again, Danny Jansen making history today. Again, future trivia question. It's going to be something. And then the Royals, like we said before, sweeping the doubleheader with the Guardians. The 4-3 win earlier today, and then the 9-4 win over Cleveland in Cleveland. That is massive for that AL Central. The Royals now jumping. They're in second place right now, but it's what now? It's only one game, I believe, separating the two of them as of this moment.
It's one game, and the Royals are 31 runs up in run differential on the Guardians. So make of that what you will.
Yeah, holy moly. We see the Yankees right now, bottom of the 9th. The Yankees are leading the Nationals 5-2. Oh, and would you know it, Clay Holmes is in the game. Maybe the game will be over. It's never easy. It's never easy. That's the thing that frustrates me about Clay Holmes the most, is that it's never 1, 2, 3. It's never good morning, good afternoon, good night. It's never easy with Clay Holmes. There's always somebody on base. There's always a walk. There's always it's always got to be something. It can't just be shut down. But okay, they're Yankees right now leading 5-2 in Washington over the Nationals. Bottom of the 10th, we have extra inning baseball right now between the Astros and Phillies. It's tied up at 2 in the bottom of the 10th. That's an interesting game. We'll see who comes out on top there. Ghost runner on right now for the Phillies. The dumbest fucking rule in all of sports is the fucking ghost runner. I hate it more than anything in the world.
I do too, but man, what an at bat that is right now. Josh Hader pitching to Trey Turner with the game on the line at what I'm sure is an electric Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah,
That's a game that all of America should be tuned into right now. I mean, that's what you pay the price of admission for.
that is what you pay the price of admission for. And again, it kind of goes back to what we were saying before. Those are the kind of matchups. Like, again, and I don't know that exists much anymore, Dalton, but like, I got excited seeing like Jonathan Papelbon and Brandon Phillips. You know what I mean? Like, I got excited to see those matchups. I don't know that exists much anymore. Moving on to the heading into the top of the 9th, the Cubs right now with a 12-6 lead over the Pirates in Pittsburgh. Blue Jays right now in the top of the 9th lead the Red Sox in that second game of that doubleheader 6-3 in Boston. The Padres with a 7-2 lead over St. Louis in St. Louis in the bottom of the 5th. The White Sox right now have a 2-1 lead over the Tigers in the top of the 5th in Chicago. The Rockies and Marlins right now bottom of the 4th. They are still scoreless in Colorado. And the Braves and Twins right now, they're delayed here in the second inning. Again, still 9-1. Bailey Oberg with a stinker right there in Minnesota. It happens. And it's Bailey Oberg. That's what he does. He throws a stinker every now and again. Nothing too heavy. Nothing to take to heart. Tampa Bay and Seattle on a little bit later today. Ryan Pepio and Bryce Miller on the bump for that one. Okay. There we go with the score update. And Dalton, we have the hot corner today. What do we have? Put some more money in our pocket. What do you have for us?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 for tomorrow night that I like quite a bit. And they're both just money lines. I like Minnesota tomorrow. Simeon Woods Richardson has really been a star for the Twins for much of this season. He's been just really consistent for them. I will say I think I'm going to look to play Minnesota first 5 rather than full game in that one. Should be able to get the number right around -110. Schwellenbach has been good for Atlanta as well. I just think Minnesota right now is a little bit of the better team here. Atlanta's just really beat up. Now they're missing Austin Riley as well. So I think with the Twins, you're getting the better lineup. I give Woods Richardson a slight edge over Schwellenbach, and you're going to get him around -110. So I show enough value with Minnesota tomorrow, first 5, that I think that's going to be worth a look. The other one that really jumps out at me, a pitching mismatch in St. Louis. Dylan Cease and Miles Michaelis in the Padres-Cardinals game, and the Padres are only -130. That's cheap for you're getting the way better pitcher in that one. I'd probably play that first 5 -140 and full game -130, given the Padres bullpen and how good it is. So Padres tomorrow, Twins tomorrow, a couple teams that I like on money lines on first 5s.
Yeah, Miles Michaelis, also known in Dalton Brown's dictionary, also known as Joe Right-hander, I believe is how Miles Michaelis is described.
I don't like him. I don't like Miles Michaelis.
I love that. That's the kind of stuff that makes me laugh, man.
I mean, you know who I put him in the same category as, and I think you'll appreciate this. Dean Kramer.
Yeah.
Like, he's just kind of a guy. Like,
yeah, that's the way it is.
Just kind of a guy.
Okay. All right, that does it for us. Dalton, any last words before we say goodbye?
Really anxious. I could really use a 10-10 Dodger game tonight in 40 minutes, but I don't get one. I got to wait till tomorrow night for Dodgers Orioles, which is going to be a really fun series. I like the way the pitching matchups stack up. I think we can, get to Cole Irvin tomorrow. I think we can definitely get to Povich on Thursday. and Corbin Burns does not have a good history against the Dodgers. So the Orioles are a damn good team, but I feel really good. Looking forward to it.
Yep. Yep. By the way, the MO right now on the Yankees is that they're not very good against left-handed pitching. In this series against the Washington Nationals, they're facing absolutely nothing but left-handed pitching. Not that the Nationals aren't very good, but they get Mitchell Parker, they get Patrick Corbin, they get Mackenzie Gore in that series, all left-handers. Congratulations for us. All right. That does it for us. That's Dalton Brown. I'm Mike Guido. This is the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast. Every Monday night, 8 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you tune in exclusively on the Grid. We'll see you then.